number up there on the billboard?
There's a 2, and then some kind of circle.
No, dumbass, not that number. 69.
Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animated features not made by Disney. I'm your host, Octaviano Macias, and right now we're going to talk about something. I mean, realistically, I wanted to do this episode on Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, the new Paramount Plus movie on Beavis and Butthead, which, great. Funny movie. If you enjoy Do America, you're going to enjoy Do the Universe. It's not as good as Do America, but I figured, you know, it is a pretty solid movie all in its own right. And part of the reason why I'm doing it but not doing it, just to be clear there, I'm doing it but not doing it, is that it's multiple factors. One, in terms of the actual episode itself, I just felt like Do the Universe is, like, I wouldn't say there's nothing to talk about. It's just that it being such a new thing, there's not as much as I feel like I could have talked about when I initially thought of doing it. And it's just, since a lot of it comes down to, yeah, that's a really funny movie. It's funny that Beavis and Butthead still works even to this day. And, you know, their usual jokes, you know, still land, all that stuff. It's, I don't know, like, it feels like that would be way too short for an episode. It feels like that's not enough material for it, and quite frankly, I just don't know what I can say about it as of this point that would really dig into it in any kind of way that is meaningful. The other reason why I'm not talking about it, even though I am talking about it, is that right now as we're filming, it is very hot, and while I do have a fan going, it's honestly not enough for me to really cool off. It's that bad right now, and I'm also a little, I don't want to say that I have COVID. I don't think I do, but I haven't really been getting the results on that. So, yeah, I'm not too sure on that front either. Now, the only thing I can say is that I will be giving you an episode today, so it's not like I'm just wasting your time here. It's just that one of the things that came to mind as I started realizing there's not much I can really talk about this without just repeating what exactly happens on this on this movie. I realized, Beavis and Butthead has been gone for, a good while. I mean, they've done shorts here and there. The TV show did get a revival about a decade ago. But, this feels like it's been a while since it's been a major Beavis and Butthead project. So I was thinking about legacy sequels and stuff like that. As of this point, people would call stuff like Top Gun sequel, the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, Ghostbusters Afterlife, that kind of stuff as legacy sequels. They're like the kind of sequels that come in years later, but it's not just a matter of like, oh, it took a long time, because of course then you would count stuff like Toy Story 3, Toy Story 4, even The Incredibles 2 as legacy sequels, but they're not really. Normally what you would count as legacy sequels is the stuff where it's like, yeah, there really hasn't been any production in this kind of thing for who knows how long, even though they've tried to do it for a while, and there's like an overemphasis on, honoring the past. Now, granted, I haven't seen the new Top Gun. I've heard that it actually does it a much smarter way, but it is still kind of falling into that, whether it's doing it in a smarter way or not. Ghostbusters Afterlife is definitely an example of one that I think did it bad. Like, even though the movie itself is kind of okay-ish, like, the effects are cool, the people, the actors in it, are giving their effort, so it's like, it's not like you're necessarily tired of watching this. Like, it is, kind of compelling, and it's got its moments, but it's so wrapped up in just being like, oh, well, this is Ghostbusters, and you like Ghostbusters. Here's the things you remember from Ghostbusters. Here's jokes you like from Ghostbusters. Here's references you remember from Ghostbusters. Here's, lines you like from Ghostbusters. That kind of stuff is where the movie goes bad, because it's so overabundant of them that you eventually realize, like, wait, some of this stuff I didn't really care for, or I barely remember from that first movie. Like, at some point, one of the characters looks at Egon's jacket and pulls out a Crunch Bar, and it's like, was anyone really thinking about that Crunch Bar joke from the first movie when they thought of stuff that they liked about Ghostbusters? It's such a weird thing, and they do that throughout the entire movie, and it's holding this stuff. Well, a movie that is essentially on its own was supposed to be playing a big joke, because it was pretty much like, oh, look, here's, people who are hunting ghosts, but instead of being like, magic users or your typical adventurers or whatever, it's just comedians dressed up like pest control, but instead they're ghost control. And that was pretty much the whole joke. And, it worked. It was a really solid joke. And, part of what was so effective about it was that they did try to make the ghost legitimately threatening, even though at the end of the day it was always a big joke, even though people want to say otherwise. But in trying to honor that while making the sequel, they essentially kind of made them gods, which is funny because there's even the whole thing in the movie where it's like, oh, they're not gods, but they might as well be based on the way the movie is treating them. They're pretty much treating all these characters as deities in a way with how reverent and how much they're honoring this stuff. And it's like, it was just a comedy about people hunting ghosts. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about, with Beavis and Butthead. No, granted, Beavis and Butthead do the universe does not go out of its way to make Beavis and Butthead look like these legendary figures who grew up with you or anything. And they're like, no, they're a couple of shitheads who were horny, and it was funny because no one could pick up on the stupid shit that they were saying or doing, to a point that it almost felt like, who's really the idiot here? The person who is saying this stupid shit, or the person who doesn't understand that they're being told stupid shit? And that was the whole joke, and that's what the universe continues to build off of. But again, you get a lot of these things where it's just like, oh, we gotta honor this stuff, and it doesn't even have to be like in a way to do it on honor with like the legacy sequels. Sometimes it's also just with the reboots, where they make certain things bigger than they are, or try to add in like a bunch of lore to this stuff, like whether you've seen like Ninja Turtles. I'm specifically talking about the 2012 one because I haven't really seen any of the more recent versions, because I know they've done a bunch of different Ninja Turtle shows, but I'm specifically talking about the 2012 CG one, which is a really good one. The DuckTales reboot from a few years back, which, again, it was a pretty good show, but you get a lot of those where they try to treat a lot of the stuff that you grow up on as these very important things. And, it's not necessarily bad. It's fine. It makes you feel more special for what you've been watching. I personally loved a lot of what they ended up doing with the Ninja Turtles 2012 show, in terms of changing up, like, okay, so here's something that we decided to do with this character, Shredder's daughter, Karai, that really, brought in a new angle to it. But then you got, like, with the DuckTales show, where it feels like, okay, so we're gonna try to further connect certain things, like, okay, we're gonna have, like, Darkwing being more connected to the DuckTales gang, or just various villains, like, having, connections that we didn't really think of, and it just starts to feel like I really didn't care for that much. And even going beyond that, the other problem when it comes to these legacy stuff, like whether it's like honoring nostalgic stuff or whatever, is when they also try to, like, I wouldn't say shit on it, but they do try to play it off as like, oh, we're better than that original version, or something like that, like where they try to acknowledge the faults of the original source, but at the same time it comes off mean-spirited. And I know that's a tightrope to walk, because sometimes you might not be intending it to come off as mean, but then it kind of comes off that way. Like, think of DuckTales, that's another one that really did that, where it's like, oh, look, we, our Webby is better than their Webby, so let's, have a little plush doll of, the original Webby getting, like, stabbed, like, not in any kind of gruesome way, but, like, it was like a little, like a thumbtack or something, like, stabbing her to like a wall or something, and it's supposed to be like a subtle way of, like, kind of mocking it, or just general things like that. And it's like, I don't know, man, why? And, maybe they didn't intend it that way, but, you never know with some of these people, because I remember seeing, like, for example, there was, like, the She-Ra reboot, never saw it. I've heard it's good, but, I just never saw it. And there were some people who, I believe worked on it, or maybe they worked on something else, I don't know, but the point is that it was animators who were kind of like, oh, well, the original one was shitty anyways, this is a much better one, and that just never sat well with me. And I get that some of that might have been because they were, there's a lot of people online who trash these things and just go on to very sexist, anti-feminist rants about this shit that's, just stupid and bigoted. And it's like, I get why you would want to be defensive, but at the same time, maybe don't shit on the thing that you're adapting. Like, you're still technically doing a new version of this show that you say is shit, but now it's, with your work being done. And it's like, it's great that, you're confident about your work and you want to defend it, but it's like, don't get it to the point where you're just trashing on someone else's work. Like, that just feels wrong, especially because, again, if you're the one, if it's the work that you're specifically adapting into a new version, it's like, well, you're going to be taking ideas from that. So, are you saying that your work is shit? Or that, I don't know. Like, it just feels like, I don't know. Like, it just feels wrong. Like, going back to DuckTales, and I don't mean to shit on DuckTales, especially on a show that's not supposed to be talking about Disney, but when it came to DuckTales, it's like, whenever it came to, like, original villains that they introduced, like, for this version, like, I know there was, like a Mark Wahlberg type of character, like, I think it was, like, Mark Beeks or something like that. I was like, I don't care for this villain. I don't like him. I prefer Glumgold. I prefer Magica. And it's like, you start realizing, like, it's a bunch of characters. The characters I prefer are a bunch of characters from the original show. So it's like, yeah, maybe don't get on your high horse. Like, granted, not that they did, but, like, if for anyone who does that kind of thing, like, maybe don't get on your high horse about how you're doing something better when you're still taking the stuff that was from that original show in your adaptation. Like, maybe you are doing it better. Maybe you are. I'm not going to say that you aren't. But at the same time, like, the fact that you're taking it means that there was something that was worthwhile in that original one. So maybe, again, tone it down on calling it shit. Which, thankfully, of course, with Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, it doesn't do, because it, aside from having, the original people involved, at the very least, Mech Judge is involved, that I know for sure. It never feels like, oh yeah, the old Beavis and Butthead is bad or anything. Like, no, it's still playing off of Beavis and Butthead just being in modern day. Like, they're learning about white male privilege and stuff like that, and it's very funny. Here's Beavis and Butthead dealing with Siri, cell phones, and all that crap, and it, it's all very hilarious, and the animation style in it is fun. Like, even though it's not cinematic in any way, it is nice to see something where there is some kind of, like, spirit of those old cartoons in it, because the way the characters are moving and the way the animation flows feels like something that you would have seen in the 90s, just upgraded to modern day, so that's always nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So, it definitely handled that right. Personally, I don't mind bringing back old cartoons or old characters or whatever, doing legacy sequels, doing reboots, any of that stuff. I don't mind, so long as, one, the people making it have a passion for it, like they do have a love for it, but at the same time, don't get up your ass in any way about it. Like, whether it's, one, being negative about it and saying, like, oh, well, our version is the good one and that one was the bad one. Like, don't do that. Don't, love the thing that you're doing, but at the same time, don't worship it to the point that you, one, can't see the flaws in it, and two, just become a monument to that thing. Like, don't just blindly worship the thing you're bringing back. Like, don't just be like, oh, we're going to be referencing all these little things, stuff that people didn't even really care about, even the ones who were mega fans in this, just because it's like, oh, well, we got to reference everything. I don't know. That's my general thing when it comes to doing that kind of thing. But I don't know. It's all really dependent on how, I guess, you feel about it. Personally, again, I don't mind them bringing these characters back. I don't mind them doing reboots or sequels, that continue on the story. Just maybe, one, love it, and two, acknowledge where you can improve on it, or where you can bring something new to the table, something that, says, okay, this is why this character needed to come back. And I'll be fine with it. It's generally lovely. But yeah, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, great movie, funny. Go watch it on Paramount Plus. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I originally wanted to do something more on that movie, but there's not much I feel like I can say about it at this point. Maybe I'll get back to it and do a retake on it where, once time has gone by, maybe I form, more specific thoughts on it, to do an episode on it, or maybe we learn some information that makes it more interesting to talk about. I don't know. I'm not really opposed to the idea of revisiting older movies or stuff that I've done on this show, so long as I can find a new angle on it, or maybe a guest comes on who provides a new angle. I don't know. What I'm generally saying is, maybe someday I'll tackle it again, but, for now, this was a nice little break to talk about some stuff, especially in regards to bringing back old characters, and I hope, maybe someone listening considers what I've said, even if it's not the most detailed thing. At the very least, I feel like I covered some ground that, might be of importance. So, yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time.
Sir, maybe you didn't know, but we have white privilege.
Thank you for coming on and listening to me today. If you enjoyed it, you can always subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow my podcast. It's on Podbean, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And if you want to support me even more, there's always the option of Patreon. Patreon is a great way to support artists. And with that, you can always put in $1 or even more. It's all up to you, all just to help produce the show and other things I may do. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the coming future.